Welcome to the Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019 Eden Prairie City Council meeting. This meeting is now called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a brief announcement about Open Podium. It's an opportunity for Eden Prairie residents to address the City Council on issues related to Eden Prairie City government before each council meeting, which are typically held the first and third Tuesdays of each month from 6:30 to 6:55 in this council chamber. If you wish to speak at Open Podium, please contact the City Manager's office at 952-949-8412 by noon of the meeting date with your name, phone number, and subject matter, just so we can be better prepared for your topic. If time permits, after scheduled speakers are finished, the mayor will open the floor to unscheduled speakers. Open Podium is not recorded or televised. If you have questions about Open Podium, please contact the City Manager's office. We're now going to, in a moment, I'm going to call the HRA meeting to order. The HRA is the Housing Redevelopment Authority. The council serves as the HRA board as well. This is a meeting within a meeting. So I call the I'm not sure I have to gavel this, HRA meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aho.
Here.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
Councilmember Durinen.
Here.
Chair Case.
Here. All right, our first item of business is to approve the minutes of the HRA meeting held back on August 13th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any items on in those minutes to question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Next item of business is to adopt a resolution approving the 2020 property tax levy and accepting the proposed budget. Mr. Getchell, do you want to add anything to that?
Maybe just to mention, members of the HRA, that both later on this meeting, the regular council meeting, this meeting, we need to set a preliminary levy for both the city and the HRA. And this action is important in that we're setting our levy ceilings. And we've spent quite a bit of time this summer detailing all of our different levies, our debt levies, our general fund levy, our HRA levy. And we actually feel comfortable that when we get to the end of the year that those levies will not change. We won't need to lower them, nor can we raise them. But the action tonight is to set that preliminary levy for the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, of which these dollars are specifically earmarked toward staff and employees. As you know from presentations throughout the year, we have a number of programs and a number of sources of revenue for our housing programs, and this is mainly tied to staff, and we're very comfortable with this levy amount.
And this is the same exact amount now for about 20 years that I can remember.
It's stayed very steady, and while you have different employees that may come and go and be tied to the program, the amount is been able to stay steady, and there's nothing that we're not able to accomplish that we haven't in the past, or even as we look forward to even more projects in the future.
Council, any additional questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I would move to adopt the resolution to approve the proposed 2020 property tax levy to be $200,000 and accept the proposed 2020 budget of $200,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn the HRA meeting?
I move to adjourn the HRA meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we are back to our Eden Prairie City Council regular meeting. We have a proclamation tonight, or actually a presentation, I should say. So, Mr.
Yeah, I'll turn this over to Mr. Loudhammer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Honor, council members, we have a donation from Renewal by Anderson of $500 towards our Arts in the Park program. And due to our wet spring weather, we moved the Arts in the Park, because it was really raining and cold that day, to September 20th. So we're only a couple Saturdays away from 9 to 4 at Purgatory Creek Park. But Renewal by Anderson is one of those that are sponsoring the event. They'll have signage and also a booth to provide more information about their products, but they have donated $500 towards it, so we really appreciate that.
Great. Council, is there a motion to receive this donation?
Move to adopt the resolution accepting the donation of $500 from Renewal by Anderson to go towards Arts in the Park.
Second.
Second, okay. I just want to say before we vote that we don't rely to the extent that we can't do some of these programs, but we really, really appreciate any of the donations that come in from our business community and various nonprofits throughout the city. It just means a lot, and it allows our dollars to go further, so they're deeply appreciated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Approval of, well, I guess I should have said any nays, but there weren't. Approval of the agenda and other items of business. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I have something to add.
Yeah, let's add it now. I was just going to ask if there's anything that you'd like to add ahead of time.
I have a council member report.
Yep. Anything else? Mr. Getchell, we're fine?
We're good.
Okay, with the one addition, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The minutes, were there any questions you had about either of the minutes? If not, we could put them together into one motion. Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve both the workshop and the council meeting held back on August 13th?
I move to approve the following city council minutes. City council workshop held on Tuesday, August 13th, 2019, and city council meeting held Tuesday, August 13th, 2019.
Okay, anything to question at all? Is there a second?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Down to the consent calendar. Mr. Getchell, anything to add to that, or can we just move right through that?
You could move through that, no changes or adjustments.
Great. Is there a motion items A through J approving the consent calendar?
Move approval of items A through J on the consent calendar.
Second.
Are there any items that any of you wish to question or just pull back just momentarily? Yes.
If I could just go back momentarily to letter H, if I could just get a clarification of the settlement. If someone can just fill me in.
Sure. It's a follow-up on our community pool project. So we had some outstanding items that were remaining to work out between, at one time, the general contractor, which we were able to do, and in this case, the architect. So this is, Councilmember Freiberg, completely closing out our Community Center Aquatics Edition project and coming to an agreement with the architect on final costs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is that sufficient? All right. All those, we've had a motion and second, so all those in favor of approval of the consent calendar signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We have only one public hearing this evening. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Yes, one public hearing for a development project in Eden Prairie. Wooddale Builders is requesting an approval of a subdivision of 9.73 acres into 17 single-family lots and one outlot. The property is located at 7120 Girard Drive, west of Sleepy Hollow Lane and north of Roberts Drive. The project proposes an extension of the public street off of Girard, providing a cul-de-sac. There'll be a second cul-de-sac for access to the westernmost lots in that development. The applicant is proposing villa-style homes on mainly single-level living on lots that range from just over 10,000 square feet to just over 31,000 square feet, with an average lot size of about 15,700 square feet. The proposed density of this development is 1.74 units per acre, and there is an outlot that's deeded for wetland preservation. So the applicant is here tonight to provide a presentation on the project, and we also have a public hearing, and I know that our planning commission weighed in on this as well.
All right. Good reminder to maybe silence phones. All right.
I thought being the one that was talking, it could have been mine, but it wasn't. So just so everyone knows, it was not my phone. I can't. I'm not sure about city attorney though.
All right. So sorry, I got lost there. Let's see. Are we?
Developer and then council
Right.
could ask questions
So
of
let's go ahead and have a
developer and staff. So
presentation,
could we
unless
move to
some of you-
presentation? Yep.
Yeah, let's have the presentation first, then we'll have any questions of developer. And then at some point, just let the people in the audience know, we'll open up as a public hearing and allow audience people to come and address us. And then possibly we'll close that off and then have council conversation. We can do that in a little bit different order, but that's the idea.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Schwieters.
Just use that. Okay, yeah. Good evening, Mayor, council members, good evening. My name is Steve Schwieters. I'm the owner of Wooddale Builders. We've done a lot of different developments in the city of Eaton Prairie. Everything from Creek Knolls to Bear Path to, we're doing one now in Stable Path, which we just opened and been quite successful already. So we're gonna have a parade home there in a week here, so we're opening. So we're looking forward to that. And we're excited about opening our new project called the Highland Oaks. Like somebody had said, it's 17 lots. 17 lots, walkout. The product that we're doing here is a little more high-end than what we have done over at Stable Path. We have upscale views over there, walkout situations. Square footage probably is going to range anywhere from 3,400 to 4,000 square feet. Probably first floor living would probably be closer to 1,730 would be the smallest, 2,400 to 2,500 being the largest on the first floors. And then obviously finished basements where the majority of these lots are walkouts. We do have one flat lot, full basement, and I think we have 4 that are lookout lots over there. Price ranges, we're anticipating $850,000 to $1.3 million is what we're anticipating. We did have a neighborhood meeting a couple months ago. Quite a few people from the neighborhood attended, so I thought we had a decent conversation. Their concerns were obviously the amount of trees that we were taking down, as well as the amount, we talked about the dirt that we're taking out of the development. We've got about 500 and some caliper inches of trees we're taking out or we're replacing. We've got about 45,000 yards of sand that we're taking out of the site. So we worked diligently with staff to get everything in line so that we can do all of that. We were asked also at last planning meeting to look at a significant tree that's on one of the property or one on the lots. We looked extensively at it, and at the end of the day, it's very, very difficult to save that tree, or impossible. So we've kind of informed staff of that. We do have, we've been working with staff diligently to move forward to get, if approval tonight, to get the grading done this year and also improvements done. So we've been working through that. We do have a title issue over there. It's Torrance. There's kind of a gap through the Torrance, which we're going through a proceeding which should take 48 days, and we're hoping to have that done sometime late October. Everybody guarantees us that it will get done. It's not going to be a problem, but we have to go through the scenario. Few things, little bit about the product. Can I use that? so just use this. There we go. This is the overall site, 17 lots. City planning pretty much informed us as to what we're doing and the zoning changes. Tree removal, 528 caliber inches of, or 548 inches of replacement trees, which are going all over the site. And 45,000 yards of dirt we're taking out, talked about that. Here's a little plat layout of the 17 lots with the 2 cul-de-sacs. Talked a little bit about floor plans. Here's somewhat our elevations. All of these units are going to be custom designed and custom built, obviously. We are doing very similar products in different parts of town. One is we just finished a project in Bloomington. Did probably, how many were on the bluff there? 17 there too. We're doing a project in Plymouth as well. Very similar products. Here's a picture of what we did in Bloomington on the river bluff. You can see the majority of these homes are all side-loaded garages. That was one of the reasons we were requesting a 25-foot front setback, because we're not going to have any front-loaded garages at all. They'll all be side-loaded. Kind of shows you a little bit of the side-load driveways in our landscape plan. Oops, I'm going to go back a little bit. Here it also shows the side-loaded garages, and we'll have anything from a 2.5 car garage to 3 car garages. And we're going to also have 4-sided architecture. What that means is the styling of the front will be carried around all 4 sides of the home. It's more of the upscale design of things today. We will have different architecture from cottagey to modern farmhouse. Seems to be very popular today. The white with the black windows and things like that. So with that, I guess I'm open for questions.
Council, we can certainly ask some questions now, as we should while Mr. Schweter is up there, but we also can ask later. Council, questions? Don't have it on, but
I've got.
well,
Go ahead.
wasn't sure who was first. I'll turn this on. Go ahead, Councilmember Nelson.
I've got some questions about 2 of the heritage trees. There's 3 55-inch heritage trees. You're taking down 2 of them. One is a basswood and one is a bur oak. Where are those trees exactly? Are they in the middle of a house? You know, but where are these 2 large ones? One of it's tree 142 and one is tree 124.
Okay.
Tree 55 is a similar size, but there's certainly 2 of the largest trees in the development.
Mm-hmm.
So where are they and why do they have to go?
I'm going to have Bob from Sather Burquist, our engineer, answer that question, if I may.
If you can keep going with questions, I'll look that up and get them marked out.
Sure.
Okay, one other thing, we had a developer in, a couple times ago that was putting in elevators into their, it was multiple story properties. Have you considered doing the same?
Well, like I had mentioned earlier, these will all be custom designed and built, so yes, I'm.
Is that
certainly
one of
there
the
will be-
options you're offering to
Yes.
people? And there's a space to put it into? And
Most definitely, yeah.
it was the first time I'd see something come through with that, but it clearly made sense for a forever home for someone.
Yes.
And all of these will definitely have basements then, so there will be some place for people to go Your last group didn't, but, you know, for like last night where we had the tornado advisory, go to a safe place, so these will all have basements then?
Yes.
That's an improvement. I approve of that. Has he found the trees yet? Because I think I'm out of questions. Or someone else can ask.
Yeah, we could come back. Council, any other questions?
I do have a few questions. So one of the questions that, you know, in speaking with the residents, they're concerned about is water runoff. There are some water runoff issues in that neighborhood presently. And so the thought is, if we make any alterations, how is that going to impact or not impact the current situation? Is it going to improve it? Is it going to make it worse? Kind of, can you comment on that situation to start with?
Yes. I'm also going to have Bob address some of those issues. We've worked diligently with staff to address all of the draining issues over there. There are definitely drainage problems over there. I mean, that acreage drains into the other people's yards. I mean, it does now. So it also drains, the majority of it drains down the driveway and goes out, which we've addressed those issues. But Bob, being the engineer, he can address those issues on what we have done. So yes, we have addressed all of those issues.
Good. I'd just like to hear the comments on that. I think it would be good for everyone, you know, to hear that. I know you've looked at it, and I understand the process and how it goes through and what has to be done. So I think I feel confident that you have addressed it, but I would like to hear, and I think it would be good for everyone to hear that. One of the other concerns I had was, had heard through the residents in meeting with them, is traffic, both during construction and post-construction. Did we do any kind of traffic studies, and what can you comment on that, Mr. Ellis?
Mayor Case, City Council members, there was not a traffic study that was done with this project, and routinely we wouldn't ask for that for a small subdivision like this. Maybe just some general rule of thumb, traffic, I guess, guidance that we use for all developments. Generally speaking, for residential development, you're going to see about 10 trips per new house that's added over the course of a day. And those trips would account for going to work, taking children to school, deliveries to the house for mail, other packages, essentially just everything that would you would see generating traffic for a single-family residential. So with this neighborhood, adding 17 new lots, replacing one, so really effectively 16 new residential lots. That'd be about 160 new trips to the subdivision per day. And in looking at some of the area traffic volumes, you know, Roberts Drive is the main feeder coming in and out of the neighborhood. That sees about 1,500 to 2,000 vehicles per day, depending on what segment you're looking at along Roberts Drive. I would assume with 2 access points going into this entire subdivision, the entire Top View neighborhood, with these new 16 lots, you're going to see about 650 vehicles per day in and out of the subdivision. And if you split that up over the 2 different driveways, you're assuming a 50-50 split of that traffic, you'll see about 325 vehicles per day in and out of each road coming into the neighborhood. In terms of traffic volumes, that's fairly typical for a subdivision. If you were to look at, say, Cardinal Creek neighborhood, where you have 3 roads that serve that entire neighborhood, there's about 192 units there. So about 50 more units than you see with the Top View neighborhood. And split out over those 3 access points, that's about 64 units per access, or 64 residential homes per access. And that's very comparable to what's being proposed here. At Top View neighborhood, it would be about 69 units per access. Now on the higher end, when you take a look at, say, the Big Sky neighborhood or the Reeder Ridge area, if you take those 2 neighborhoods along with all the new subdivision that's been approved down there, you have 2 access points serving that entire neighborhood, and you have about 200 houses, so about 100 units per access. So that's a little bit on the higher side, still operates acceptably from a traffic standpoint. And then a little bit higher than that would be Hennepin Village. So if you're familiar with that area, there's actually 500 housing units there on 2 access points, so about 250 houses per access. So again, we're talking here 64 houses per access. All of these residential roads operate with an acceptable level of service. So I don't, in my professional judgment, foresee any traffic issues in and out of the neighborhood. Now, that's not to say that there might be icing conditions that during the winter months maybe causes some traffic problems that we need to address or examine a little bit closer, because this is an area that when it was originally built is a little bit underserved with stormwater, and it doesn't have curb and gutter. So those are the types of things we see. Icing issues and managing stormwater can be tricky without that infrastructure. So, you know, our plan is over the winter, we want to see where we have these icing issues, and are there ways that we can address that with other future infrastructure improvements? I suspect probably there are.
Yeah, and kind of as a follow-on to that, would you see that we, as part of this project, would there be, you know, I don't know, it's almost kind of a separate issue in terms of the, you mentioned that kind of the lack of storm drainage on Girard specifically, kind of as you go around that corner and go down the hill there. That's where it kind of gets icy, is right going down that hill and around that corner, which is kind of a bad corner. And then in terms of, you know, the water runoff, it's running down Girard, down towards Roberts Drive. Would we as a city kind of combine anything with this project and try to mitigate any of those, or would we just look at that as a completely independent project?
Councilmember Aho, I would say anything south of this proposed development would be a separate issue that the city would try to address on their own. There may be an opportunity here at that entrance point into Highland Oaks where the developer's proposing to install some stormwater infrastructure, and if there is a spot right on Girard Avenue that has some water that is just kind of pooling there, a small extension of that storm sewer to pick that up might be helpful. We'd have to take a closer look at the topography at that intersection to see if that would be beneficial or not. At this point, I don't know, but there could be an opportunity to address that if there is an issue.
Okay, thank you. One further question that I do have at this time is, in speaking with the residents, I think generally, I think I heard very positive comments about the nature of the development. They like the look of it. They like, you know, what the product that's going in there. I think there's very positive aspects and feedback that I've received. I think the only negative aspect that I kind of heard was just the quantity of houses. Have you 17 lots in that? You know, I understand it's been done in other developments in Eden Prairie. Have you looked at doing something like 11, 12 lots, and what would that do to the economics of the, you know, I realize you're trying to maximize the amount of lots you can get on the property because you pay X amount of dollars for the entire lot, and so you're trying to maximize that. But have you looked at doing less housing units in there and what that would do to the economics of the development?
Well, obviously, yes, economics always plays a factor in it. You know, our density is 1.74, which in most residential units is 2 units per acre, so we're below that. We have, we're requesting, you know, a setback of 7.5, which is 14 or 15 feet. In most cases here, the lots are 64 feet wide. In most cases, the buildings won't be bigger than 38 to 42. So we're gonna have, you know, 36 feet between buildings. So, you know, we just really feel we don't have overly extended density here. Unfortunately, regardless of the density, the trees are gonna come down because of the dirt that we have to haul. There's nothing we can do about that. And because of all the dirt hauling and everything that it costs to improve this particular project, as well as the retaining walls, it's important to get a certain amount of density. I don't necessarily always like to talk economics, but I'm a businessman.
It's reality.
It's reality.
Where can you comment on where the retaining walls will be located? If you show on the diagram, kind of point to it.
Speak into the mic.
I'm sorry. So here, we're not seeing it. Okay, there now we're seeing it. Okay, so retaining wall is right there.
Yeah.
How high of a retaining wall will that be?
I believe at the highest, it's probably 10 to 12?
10 to 12.
Yep.
10 to 12 feet?
And we are doing a two-step retaining wall, so visually it'll look more pleasing than just one long, tall wall.
And what will that be constructed of?
Boulders.
Boulders, okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Nelson.
Will there be curb and gutter in your development?
Yes. curb and
Since it's
gutter.
not all the way around, but so we will be getting a piece of it. Then have you figured out where the trees are? And what's happening to the two of three of the big ones?
Okay, Bob.
We can pull that sheet back up. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Bob Malstead with Sept Berquist. I'm the civil engineer on the project. Tree 124 is in our filtration basin. So, you know, with the ponding that we're doing, that tree would get inundated with water, so that was the reason we couldn't save that one. And 142 is in the rear yard of lot 6, but with that size of tree, we're cutting about 6 to 7 feet there. We just didn't think it was feasible to try to save that close to the house. With 6 feet of cut around and putting a retaining wall in to preserve it and trying to get the drainage to work, plus building a house within, you know.
Be a really selling feature for that house to have a huge tree like that. Must be the Bur Oak one. They're fairly, I've done house extensions where they're going in near oaks. Seems to work. I would really like you to take at least a second look at that one. As they're, you know, assuming the tree is healthy and everything. They're a pretty straight up and down tree, if I remember, for Bur Oaks.
Well, and just in commenting about bur oaks or oaks in whole, I mean, to cut 6 feet around it, and you have to stay out of its canopies, and I've removed and dealt with a lot of trees in my 45 years. And the problem is that it won't be year 1 or 2 or 3, but it'll die in year 4 and 5. Oh, sorry. Did you hear me on that one?
Yes.
And it's unfortunate, but it is, they're very sensitive trees, the oaks. Especially the root systems and, yes.
You were going to comment on the water runoff, changes to the property that would impact water runoff and how you're dealing with that. Can you show us that, please?
Yes, I can, if we can get the other screen up now. There we go. This is a little map we created. It shows on the left the existing conditions. In the existing conditions, we have 3 drainage patterns, one to the northwest in blue, one to the northeast in green, and one in magenta or purple to the south. And then on the right-hand side, we show our proposed condition. To the south, the purple or magenta color has been limited down to just the little blue strip. We're building a berm along the property line, and then we're cutting a filtration basin in to the north of that. So we're going to cut the grade down there and work through this with the watershed. We went to the watershed last week. We have watershed approval, but we've designed that to hold back-to-back 100-year events. So we'll hold the 100-year and infiltrate that fully, and then we put a drain tile in there as a reliever for that. But then with the drain tile outlet, we can hold another 100-year, and then we're 1 foot above that to our freeboard. To the northeast, where our grading limits are, we're going to add drain tile and put roof leaders in to connect the houses to a drain tile. We're not going to grade all the way down to the bottom of the ravine, but we'll run the drain tile behind the homes and get what portion of the roof water we can get into there to handle that. And then right now, a portion of that green runs down the current driveway and out onto Girard. We have catch basins in the far right at our entrance, about 40, 50 feet in. So we'll pick up all that water down to there, and then just the last 40 or 50 feet of our street connecting to Girard will drain out onto Girard now. So the rest of that green area will be cut off. That's going that way down the current driveway today and captured and run back to our.
So is it your opinion then that you're actually improving the drainage situation that currently exists by making these changes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I will further comment on, all of the homes will have full gutters, and everything with downspouts will go into catch basins and pop-ups to control the water, and in some cases, we will pipe them to the drain tile too as well. So, and it is sand conditions there, so water's gonna, dissipate well.
Councilmember Narayan.
I have a couple of questions. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the neighborhood meeting because three of us happened to be there, 3 council members, and being public, we could not do that. So I was the one willing to step out. But I do have some questions related to the traffic pattern. On a straight road, you have certain capacity. If the road is curved, do you keep same capacity in terms of traffic?
Councilmember Narayan, I would say for the volume of traffic we're talking, the curves wouldn't create any type of safety issue I'd be concerned about. You start getting 1,000, 2,000, several thousand a day, then yeah, curves can, more or less it causes a slowing of traffic, and
Right.
that then creates the potential for rear end or people crossing center line. But for the volume of traffic that we're seeing on a residential road that really doesn't connect to another neighborhood, I just don't see that being a significant issue.
Is any concern related to, I don't know, that neighborhood, there are a lot of children playing or not playing, high density of children versus, low density of children? Is there any consideration we need to think about?
No, I think we look at all residential streets as having the potential for children. We don't look at a neighborhood that might have residents that are older and maybe the children have moved on. We just assume that every residential street has the potential for somebody riding a bike, walking, child chasing a ball out into the street. So we don't really look at that neighborhood by neighborhood. It's universal.
Thank you. Regard to the question Brad had about the water, and I heard similar concern. While you're constructing, that period of construction, do you estimate, do you predict more water going to come to the neighboring lots? Not afterwards, while you're doing it. And how, if it is, is there a way you can prevent, so while you're constructing the 16, 17 homes, there is no water overrun to the other properties nearby?
Yes, with our grading work, like we've noted, we've got about 45,000 yards of material to export. So we'll set that up so that we're creating what I call a temporary sediment basin. We'll put our silt fence, get our tree clearing done, put our silt fence in, and then we're gonna put some temp sed basins up against that when we start hauling the material out. The majority of our work will be loading the material and trucking it out, getting to the finished grade. The majority of our site is in cut. The area where those 2 retaining walls are is our 2 lots that are in fill. So we'll be able to manage that pretty well, because once we start cutting down, then we're creating a basin within our site. So we should be able to control all of our runoff during construction.
Thank you. My last question. While you're doing the construction, it will take how many months? 12 months or so?
Typical construction time is 7 months.
7 months?
5.
He wants you to just speak on the mic.
7 months would be our construction time for a villa.
So what precaution that you will be able to take so the neighbors is not disturbed by sound, by water we already talked about, other type of noise?
What are the hours of construction?
Hours of construction, many things. I mean, you know more than I do, that may affect the neighboring, that 7 months of period of time. Is any precaution? Do you need to take anything? Have you already thought of that?
We have constructed, many homes. We've done a lot of tear downs in Edina. We've done a lot of tear downs in Minnetonka, on the lake. We deal with this type of situation day in and day out. Parking, people not starting too early, not working too late. Typically, things happen, but we control it as best we can, and I think we've done a great job with that. So in this particular case, again, we do have 2 cul-de-sacs, so the traffic will be contained within the project. So construction workers will be in there. Unfortunately, the construction workers start early. It will be 7:30. Weekends, Saturdays, typical for a lot of the framers, depending upon what time of year it is and when it is, because we're dealing with outside environments, and when weather is good, they're going to work. But we do have lift machines, which aren't overly noisy. So, it's going to be no different than a residential dealings of new construction anywhere, unfortunately. We will do our best to keep it under control. We manage people well. We manage with dumpsters and cleanup, and everything is silt fenced, and we manage that well. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but.
Yeah, I got the idea. You guys are pretty expert. And thank you. And lastly, I just want to say thank you for building houses in Eden Prairie. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question here. You explained the retaining wall is about 12 foot, the one that we were talking about earlier, and there's going to be a boulder. Looks like there's 2 retaining walls. Can you help me out as far as what's the elevation of the other one? I take it it's probably also boulder? Okay.
Aren't they?
They're going to be similar?
They're,
Okay.
yeah, very similar.
I
But
kinda thought
isn't
so
the
that it's
total,
dropping back.
Bob, total is 12 feet
Yeah.
between the 2 retaining walls, so each one would be like
5 to
6.
6 feet, and then
Yeah.
back 3 to 4 feet, and then up 5 to 6.
Right, tiered.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Anything else? Are you good? Here's my suggestion. Let's open it up to the public, and then we can, if you get questions along the way, take note, and when we close the public hearing portion of it, we'll give it back to all of us again to chat. So this is a public hearing. We'd like to hear from you. When you come forward, identify yourself with your name and address for our records. If we have a lot of people that want to speak, we'll start to limit it. Maybe I can, just to get a feel here, raise your hand if you plan to speak this evening. Okay, I think we're going to be fine then. Maybe don't go on too long, more than 3-4 minutes or so, but great. Come on up. Thanks for being here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is David Ringsmooth. I live on Beehive Court, right on the south side of this proposed development, and just have a couple quick comments here. First of all, in the neighborhood, I brought up the concern about traffic, and I kept running the numbers in my head, and I think about the children that are walked through this neighborhood along this road that do not walk on a sidewalk. So our neighborhood doesn't have sidewalks. All the kids walk up to the 9 Mile Creek Park District down from in Beehive Court, and adding that number of trips every day. There's cars coming by, extra cars every couple of minutes with those kinds of numbers on one of those exit roads. I'm thinking to myself, how about some slow children signs or something to make the people aware that there's children walking through there, at least. So that's just the first thing I would bring up. And second of all, the berm that you've got, Steve, that you're talking about putting in there, can you tell me that my backyard is right up against that berm, and I assume it's going to rise up a little bit and fold over? Can you tell me what kind of height we're looking at from the elevation of my backyard?
We're stuck
Go ahead,
stuck?
yeah, please.
at the end, or?
I think it's okay right now to get the question answered
Okay.
in the moment.
And then the final thing, I was actually considering asking if the council would authorize the development without the pond, but when I saw the diagram and how the water was draining, I realized that there's no way. He's actually improving the water drainage with that pond. Personally, I felt like the pond was a hazard because he said it's going to go down 7 feet to handle back-to-back 100-year events and drain it out. And I didn't really want the mosquito trap there. If there's more mosquitoes there, I'd rather have a tree blind. And his first plan that he showed the neighborhoods had this beautiful tree blind in that first plan before he put the pond in. I liked that better, but for the drainage sake for my neighbors, and they had water this last spring because the ground was frozen, everything ran off. For them, I realized there's no way you can handle that without the pond. That's what it looks like to me. So just a question.
Just want to answer the berm question, yes.
Yeah, so the grade along the property line is kind of 918 to 920. We'll bring the berm up to 920 and a half, so just up a foot and a half, and then we're going to cut down back on our side into our backyards to a 915.
So it's going down 5 feet.
5.5 feet, and that'll be our flat filtration. It's more of a filtration basin than a pond.
Sure.
So it's going to be dry in normal conditions.
Good. Okay, I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank you. Someone else? Give your name and address for our records.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Prince. I live at 13190 Beehive Court. We are the house behind lots 4, 5, and 6 of this development. And I'm thrilled that you did decide to put that berm in there. I don't think I saw that berm beforehand, so it really does help to have that berm there. However, the Miller property, back when 9 Mile Creek was putting that development in, they did not allocate, or they did not give the land to the 9 Mile Creek Watershed District so that they could put a path across there. And I'm thinking with that retaining wall, now that we've got that area, it might be a good way to continue the path that is in the 9 Mile Creek as a walking path. And I know, I was just on this last week with my grandkids, it could run right into the Arbor Glen path, and we really could open up that area to a lot of people that way. So that's my only comment.
Just a quick question on that. So are you referring to, if I'm just looking at the satellite map of that right now, so are you referring to just almost due west of there where the path goes between Cary Lane and Sand Ridge? Is that?
There is a path there now.
Right.
And the Millers, when the other path that is now around for the 9 Mile Creek watershed, that area, the Millers declined to donate that land there, and now they have left that land open for the watershed, so I think it would be nice to extend that path to where the Cary and Sand Ridge is.
Okay, I see where you're saying. So then, I mean, I guess the only question would be who pays for that? Who pays to do
Right.
that? Yeah.
I think the developer should be nice about
Well,
it.
but it's not all on their. would not be all on their property
just,
and
but
under their
just
control.
on their area. I think it would be a nice amenity to their development to have that much nature trail. So.
Thank you.
Next.
My name's Maria Ringsmooth, and I want to thank all the council members and the mayor for my many emails back and forth with my passionate response to save the trees. And I am encouraged by Council Member Nelson in her appeal to save that bur oak. And I would put in a plug to reduce this development by one home to save that bur oak. And I know that sounds just crazy unless you hold a child's hand under that bur oak. And I have one of those children because there is a highway where these bur oaks come to our yard. Mine is a brain-injured 32-year-old young man. we love the Burr Oak. We just love it. And I know it's over on, more on the Prince's side, but the squirrels, it's their 494, okay? They're running down these things and they're joining. And so I would put in a plug. I was the one that appealed for less. And I would appeal. You make magical kingdoms. The homes look like Walt Disney. But you didn't make the Burr Oak. Mother Nature did. And I think she's worth saving. So I'd like to put in a plug for that. And also, as you're considering that, where my husband forgot to mention my request for the biggest trees you can put by our property or the Prince's, because we're very used to Mother Nature handling the water. She's handled it. Water comes down that hill, and we've never had water in our basement, ever. But the Prince's did. They had the water. So the biggest trees that you can plant, the ones that maybe have the biggest root systems for potential to just shore up, because you're going to put a drain there. And we would appreciate the biggest trees there. And my son Eddie would love you for that. The biggest trees. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. All three speakers, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor Case and Council. My name is Stephanie Combe. I'm a resident of 12965 Girard Drive. We have been residents there for about 4 years and moved in there with our son, who is now 12. And I'm concerned about the safety of that road. And there's an assumption that the only time we have a problem with that road is in the winter with ice. And yet I was the one who called 911 this spring around graduation time, I think, when a car went too fast around that curve and took out the sign at the curve, took out, made a pretty big dent in that tree. And, I get that this development is being targeted for people 55 and up, and they might not do as kind of speedy driving, but it is going to be more traffic, and it makes it pretty challenging to have, our neighborhood is transitioning. We have many original owners who are now trying to sell their properties, and we hope to have young families move in. And if we don't have the right answer for making that space safe, there's not going to be a reason for families to move in there. And I'm very concerned about, the bus stop at Donlea and Girard. Already ices up and gets a lot of snow because of just that. And we've also seen mailboxes taken out in that corner. So I also, though, don't want to be the one bearing the tax burden, and I don't know how this all works, so I can't speak to it very well. But I don't want to be the one bearing the big tax burden on our property to make it a better system for a development, to accommodate a big development where there's going to be very high-end homes and to make it all work well. So I don't know how to say it other than that, but I hope you consider part of that and how any street development that happens is reflected in that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Council, let's close the public hearing, so let's have a motion and a second, and then we'll have our council conversation. Someone?
I would move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, council. I think I'll actually start. I had reserved my time and let all of you speak before, and I'd like to hear from you again. Clearly, when Councilmember Aho and I went out to the neighborhood for basically a walkthrough. And by the way, Councilmember Narayan was there, and appreciate that he did leave and allow us to stay, because open meeting law, only 2 council members present at one time. But when we went on that walk, it was really clear that the 4 big issues were the water, and I'll talk about these each separately and quickly, the tree loss, the density, and then toward the end of my walk, this path became a significant conversation topic. And staff, I'm just letting you know ahead of time here, and I don't, again, know if that's Mr. Ellis or Mr. Lothammer, but I do want to learn more about the possibilities, the not possibilities, where it would connect, just in a moment. The traffic and the water issues, there's a piece to that that's not connected to this development. There's a part of the water that obviously is, there's a part of the traffic that is. But it seemed the more that people were talking about it, that there's the issue at the corner of Girard and Roberts. And Mr. Ellis, to your point, we all get completely that it's all about scale and scope, and it's all about 30 other intersections or 30 other roads across the city that have similar kind of traffic, and we deal with it and all that. But there are probably specific intersections at certain times around the city that do warrant some kind of possibly special attention. I just throw it out. I'm not putting it, it's not connected to this project tonight, but I think it's important to at least point out that I think the intersection at Girard and Roberts is a difficult one for people to get out on at certain, maybe twice a day, but in mornings. And so the idea of exacerbating it further is a concern to neighbors. And I just would love to see the city, I don't know, just look at that, that's all. Just, I think we'd be doing good work in our due diligence for the neighbors if we did just address it again. Just, have somebody sit out there, just look at that intersection. Maybe it doesn't rise to some, level that it warrants anything, and maybe there are some things we could do. The second thing is that the speed of the traffic coming around the curve, which even without ice, they had a car that went into a tree. And in the wintertime, because of the after melt, I guess it's icy a lot. So I wonder if out of this, again, it's not connected directly to this project, but out of this could come a recognition by our staff that there are, I'm making this up too, but let's say there's 30 areas in the city that because of the curve, the slant of the road, and the shading of trees and the ice melt, that become very slippery quickly. And we just know that. And we have maybe one truck that gets dedicated, a pickup or something, to going out regularly. We have that now. Oh, you raising your hand or just saying one? Take it.
Just a comment, Mayor Case. I think that if we are to solve this issue, it should be, you should direct that staff and the developer look at extending the storm sewer to that intersection to pick up that runoff, because that would solve the problem.
I like that, and I'd like to have that in our. And it may not work. I mean, we're with you, all of us up here with the people clapping. But keep in mind that water has to go downhill and has to go back into that neighborhood. So I don't know, but yes, definitely, let's put that as a condition. But I'm adding one other thing here, and it's outside of this. Developers agreement tonight or this project, and that is that we just identify, and we may do that now, I don't know, but we just identify these 30 places around the city that get iced over quickly after plows come by, and they're dangerous. The slant of the road, the curve, the speed, and I think this is one of them. It's at the top of the hill. It's at the top of Girard. I just think it's dangerous, and it ices over. I think this development will help it, because I think even if we don't get this extension piece in, I think just taking all the water that, I don't know, you didn't give a percentage, but it sounds like a lot of water comes down the driveway right now, and I think we're going to take a lot of that off, so I think that's good. I don't personally have an issue with the density itself because we are doing projects like this across the city. I think it's reasonable. I think the idea, I know you say, Mr. Ellis, you say it's 10 cars per household, and I think that's a good average across the city, but that's for, again, houses that have kids in school and, and going to Boy Scouts and whatever, and these seniors typically do not travel that much. Now, they might be buying from Amazon a lot, so it might be a lot of deliveries, but I don't think we'll generate necessarily the traffic that way. Water, just quickly. Right now, they're not curb and gutter. I think that's the issue, that Girard is not curb and gutter. So right now, the water is being retrofitted jerry-rigged, whatever, and there's drains at the bottom of where the valley is down Girard before it goes up the hill towards Robert. I don't know how large those pipes are. I don't know when we put them in. I don't know if it's capturing enough. They also have drains up on Beehive. I don't know how large the pipes are. I don't know where it goes. So maybe, again, that's a different issue. It's a stormwater drainage fund issue. Maybe I'd like to see us look at that. This is a great, yes, residents can come in at any time and ask us to help solve the problems that are in existence. But when we have these projects come up that highlight some of the issues that are pre-existing, I think it's a great time to look at it, not to burden the new developer coming in, but definitely to have the city look at it. Okay, the path. I just need to hear from staff. Is it even doable? Because we don't have to build the path now. We just would need some kind of a easement across it for potentially maybe someday a floating path or some kind of boardwalk path that the 9 Mile Watershed District would go out and get a grant for, and they'd build it and they'd connect from this area. This council, well, particularly the three of us, because we go back, more than a decade together, we have prioritized connecting neighborhoods. That's just something that I wish was done in the 70s and 80s across our whole city. We have not done a good job about that, but we have as a council of recent, and sometimes it's been very hard to do, but I just want to know, is this one of those opportunities to connect trail systems, connect neighborhoods, and all we would need to do is get an easement across, maybe down even in the wetlands, because it could be some kind of a floating walkway. So, Mr. Lotheimer.
Yeah, so as we look at it in relation to this particular development on the north side, the need to gain any additional property is not needed in order to be able to do a boardwalk situation. And it wouldn't even be beneficial. Where a boardwalk would be a little bit farther north than the property line of this development. So we own that property. It's not an issue of ownership or even needing an easement. It is wetland, so we would need to work with the watershed district, but it's very similar just to the east in the Cardinal Creek conservation area. That's primarily boardwalk as well, so it'd be a similar concept. And as you had mentioned before, just west of the 9 Mile Creek office, Mrs. Carwar dedicated that strip to the city because she always wanted the public access to go back into Cardinal Creek. This would join up to that. You would need to span about 1,000 feet to get it over to that hard surface path that we've been talking about. So about 1,000 feet, most of it needing to be boardwalk because of the type of soils and the amount of water potential that's back there. So just a quick estimate based on some of our boardwalk costs in the past, talking about somewhere between $150,000 and $175,000 to do that. As you know, we've recently conducted a bike and pedestrian master plan, which rated and ranked some of those trail linkages that are still out there, and we do have probably the ones that are out there because they're the most difficult and most expensive to do. They haven't been tackled in some cases because of that. If I looked at the list of those and based on what this and the not as many people as it would serve compared to some of the other ones, it would fall fairly down in the ratings on our list of priorities when we looked at all of the other areas that are still left out there to be made connections with and make that neighborhood to neighborhood connection. Typically those are more of a hard surface path. When we do the boardwalk, it tends to be more of a go for a stroll, go into a circle. Certainly it would connect, but not quite like a hard surface path would.
So just to sum it, you're saying what we would want, what I shared right now, could be accomplished without anything from this parcel.
We would not need additional land from the development.
In order to accomplish a connectivity.
Yes. If
obviously,
we look,
money aside.
Yeah, if we looked at a preferred route, it wouldn't be across what this development is.
All right, council, further questions, comments, what are your thoughts? Let's go down the line. Councilmember Freiberg.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to go back a second to this tree, number 142, if I could. I got an idea. Let's see if I'm on track. or not. I understand, let's see if I'm following right. Cutting around 6 foot, you expect the life of the tree no more than 5 years if you have to cut because of the root structure. Am I right? That's what I've heard, the way I heard, okay. I'm looking now, my understanding is that it sits behind lot 4. Am I pretty close, am I right?
6.
Okay, it sits behind 6, okay, so let me rethink this here a second. So it's 6. Okay. Is there any way, I thought it was 4, so I'm changing what I was thinking here. Is there any way of saving that tree, shifting that property as far as the actual structure on that lot, without really messing with the setbacks? Now, what I'm thinking, as far as to get the distance, because I'm going to tell you, 53-inch oak, there's not many of them around. And if there's any way that it can be done and still do this, I'd like to know.
Well, I think we can look at it again. We've looked at it, and we can look at some rotations, but we kind of need to pick a house for that lot, a specific one then, and get into that detail. And, we're not at this stage with the custom build. I mean, he needs a buyer to come in, and if they want a 3-stall or a 2-stall, but we can look at some
So you wouldn't rule
options.
it out? Okay.
No, I wouldn't rule it out, but right now it's removed in our plan, and what we have before you has it coming out, and we're replacing for that.
Well, I'd like to see that being given some serious consideration. I understand that
We did,
built.
and I talked to our tree
Because
specialist about the condition of the tree, and
I understand it would do no good to have the tree die out in 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's an either-or scenario with that tree. I understand that. Would be pretty cool if you can keep it. I think it would add a lot up on there, and given some thought, there might be still, I'm looking at that lot right now, there might still be a way of adjusting that with those setbacks.
Right, but I've also got to look at the drainage. I got to get the water.
I understand
a couple
that,
other
yeah.
directions from
'Cause-
that lot, so.
And that's all I can ask is the consideration at this point on there. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
I will admit he's right, it's a big lot. And not every house has to look like just every other house. So it might be nice to go back to the drawing board one more time, since they are all custom. That it's possible.
Yeah, we can look at it again.
Yeah.
We looked at it last week, and we came in and met with city staff on it on Friday.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to point out, there's nothing says that this is going to be senior housing, because these are going to be nice houses that are fully big enough to have kids in, or teenagers in, or whatever. So I wouldn't assume that these homes will be necessarily sold to seniors. They might be more sold to 50-year-old execs of some kind. So,
The marketplace will be most definitely 55 and older, empty nesters. Kids will come home, yes. Grandkids will be there. So visit and then see you later, go away.
your development says that someone younger than 55 can't purchase into it then?
No, we have no limitations, but
So if I was 40 years old and I walked in and said, I would like a $900,000 house built on this lot, you might consider it.
I would, absolutely.
So I said, we can't assume that it's all seniors.
Don't sign her up until after this vote or something. Anything else?
No, generally, I'm fairly happy with this.
Excuse me, 1 second. I would like to have Bob address, because we did meet with staff and city engineers last Friday and talk about the drainage at the end of the road where it hits Gerard, and that is not doable to get because of the drop and things there. Is that correct, Bob?
With the location of the end of our storm sewer, I'm not able to extend that out into Girard. The road continues to drop from in our site another 2 feet to get out onto Girard. So the storm sewer and all the grading would have to come down, 2 to 3 feet to make that adjustment. And with our export and the work that we're doing now, trying to get another, 2 feet out of that to get the storm sewer to work is very difficult. But like I stated, we're trying to do everything we can to pick up all of our site water and keep it within our site and into our 2 basins.
All set? Councilmember Aho.
Well, I think, some of the issues that I heard as we've talked about at the meeting with the residents and through email exchanges and phone calls is, water issues is one of the large ones. And I think, what I'm hearing is that you guys are addressing all the site water, and I think that's going to improve the water situation in the neighborhood, especially for the neighbors that are adjoining the property. I think that's going to be a better situation for them. I think the water issues on the street, on Girard, where it's flowing down the street, and the first house on the corner of Girard and Beehive Court, you can clearly see where the water is overrunning the somewhat of a curb there and running down over the grass and into that property's driveway and into their garage. I think that's, to me, is a separate issue outside of this development, and I think we as a city need to address that and handle that, but I don't see that as part of the development at all. Traffic, there's always concern about traffic. I think we as a city just need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to handle the traffic and make sure that it's not an issue for safety. And that we're dealing with any freezing road conditions. I know it does exist. I've experienced it myself, so I know it's there. I think it is a good thing that we address it. But again, I think that's outside of this the purview of this project. And so what I'm hearing, I'm comfortable. I understand the density issue. Some people don't like the amount of density, but I think it's in comparison to other properties that have developed in the city, it's pretty comparable. One of the things that we don't want to see, obviously, as a city is that you have very high disparity between densities between neighborhoods. It's a little bit more dense than the surrounding neighborhoods because it is such a older neighborhood that the lot sizes were much larger then, but still it's not overly dense, I would say, and so I'm not really seeing anything that would prevent me from supporting it.
Councilmember Naran.
I heard, just like Brad said, 3 issues: tree, traffic, and water. And listening to everybody, I would say, I think the staff need to work with you, developer, and figure it out what you can do. Like Mark was suggesting, can you move the tree, what you can do related to the water and the traffic, what you can do, and also what city need to do. So end of the day, by this development, current neighbors cannot be suffer from this. So we had to figure it out between the city and the developer to solve some of these 3 major problems. The last one, I just want to say, the filtration basin. I think one of the development we were talking, and there is a rule, so many inches of water has to drain out. So it will not have long standing water sitting in that basement. So the probability of mosquito and so on, probably a lot less because most of the case will be drained out. That's my understanding.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So the 3 things, hope that I like the staff work with you and come to resolution and decide what are the things that developer need to do, what are the things that city need to do.
All right. Just a couple thoughts here. Maybe more in an educational way, let me say that if the council decides, all of us, or at least the majority of us, that we want something, we're capable and able to direct that. It may or may not be the right thing to do, but we can do that. That's different than suggesting that, if possible, save a tree. So I just want to be really clear about that we're directing staff to have a conversation, but we did not direct to save a tree, and our ordinance typically doesn't do that anyway. And I just want to qualify that Former Mayor Nancy Terlukens and I don't know if it's fair to say we co-wrote the first tree ordinance, but we were deeply a part of it. So I'm a tree preserver, tree lover. I think hundreds of thousands of trees are in Eden Prairie today because of the work that we did from our council back in 1995. So I want to save every tree possible as well. I think you run the risk of almost like whack-a-mole, that you try to get in on. I'm not saying we're micromanaging, but you try to get in on to save one tree. And I heard a couple things came out that, well, that could change the lay of the land, or it could change drainage. And we don't know enough about the dynamics of this. Staff does, and I respect the fact that staff could have this chat. But we don't, is my personal opinion. So it's fine to say, hey, save one tree that could die in 3 years, and meanwhile we moved a house and changed the drainage and messed up the, and we saved a tree that died. And I've actually seen a couple times that councils do that, and it didn't work out so well. So I leave it in staff hands, and I hope all the rest of you will too. And if the tree can get saved, great, and if not, it just didn't. The thing I would like, just in terms of expectations from the neighbors, is just to hear that 45,000 cubic yards of sand removal, what is it? I'm trying to think, 20 cubic yards in a decent-sized truck, a couple thousand loads of trucks coming in and out of there. I want people to understand what that's going to look like. How long will that take? How many truckloads a day? I mean, you don't have to be exact. I just want the expectations to be clear. So somebody just want to kind of speak to that. Is that acceptable?
Yes, estimated time frame will be 3 weeks at the
Weather permitting. And
weather being appropriate. 3 weeks would be the soonest we could, but it could take 4 weeks.
Okay.
To haul that much dirt.
That's better than, I guess, what I feared, but I just want that to be out there, that this is no small earth-moving project. It's a pretty big deal. Will you be able to use a lot of it on site, or some of it, to smooth it? There's a gully in there, like a...
Well, the 45,000 yards is moved out.
Okay,
period.
got it.
It's
understand.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. Council, is there anything else? Are you prepared to take a vote, or staff, anything you want to add? Mr. Getchell, are you fine? Okay.
I'm clear.
Council, anything else? Let's see, we need a motion to complete the rest of the motion then. That would be a
all right, since I
one of you.
Since I made I closed the public hearing, I'll make the rest of the motion.
Sounds good.
So adopt a resolution for planned unit development concept review on 9.73 acres and approve the first reading of ordinance for planned unit development district review with waivers on 9.73 acres and zoning district change from R1 13.5 to R1 9.5 on 9.73 acres, and adopt a resolution for preliminary plat of one lot into 17 lots and one outlot on 9.73 acres, and direct staff to prepare a development agreement incorporating staff and commission recommendations and council conditions, and authorize the issuance of an early land alteration permit for Highland Oaks at the request of the developer, subject to the conditions outlined.
Is there a second? Everybody's got great music, but
Second.
maybe not council meetings. So it's been, motion's been made and seconded. Any additional conversation, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Welcome again. Neighbors, keep us informed of everything along the way if there are issues that arise. Staff, could I just say we raised two issues that were separate from this approval that I would love to see staff come back at some point. I'd like to hear about the intersection at Roberts and Girard. I'd like to hear about the possible, extra salt on that one turn. And then we want to hear about water options, possibly to control some additional water going down, not from this development, going down that hill. Great, thank you.
Also maybe a slow children sign in appropriate places.
If that's possible, or if we do that at times, I think that's a great idea.
Traffic, yep.
Okay. Neighbors, thank you for coming in and sharing your comments with us. We appreciate the input. And we are ready to move on to payment of claims. Is there a motion to approve payment of claims as
I move
submitted?
approve the payment of claims
Is there a
submitted.
second? Whoops, sorry. Cut you off. Is
that
there a
okay?
second?
Second.
Okay, any items at all that you want to question staff on the payment of claims? Roll call.
Councilmember Aho,
Aye.
Councilmember Freiberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. All right, we are down to reports of council members. Councilmember Nelson.
I have a quick question. If you, maybe it can be answered, maybe it needs to be looked into. Last night, at least my cell phone went off. I assume all your cell phones went off, saying that there was a tornado in the area and to take shelter. But there was no city sirens that went off. And through the path of the tornado was quite a bit north of here. So my question is why are citizens of Eden Prairie hearing one thing on their cell phones and either not hearing the city sirens, or it seems like they should both be going off at once, and perhaps the city sirens are actually when it's a problem here. But how do we get them equaled up without listening to sirens somewhere north of Highway 394 all the time? Looks like you have an answer, Chief.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. So specifically, our outdoor warning sirens are all controlled by Hennepin County. So throughout the county, when there is an event, they are then set off by the Hennepin County Communications Center, and we would then coordinate with that. Specifically, our outdoor warning sirens have also advanced throughout the years, that they're now done by polygon. It used to be that when an outdoor warning siren was set off, they were all set off. Now the National Weather Service can be more specific about where events are and where they're happening. And so as I understand it, that's part of what happened last night. Councilmember Nelson, to specifically talk about the difference in our cell phone technology. Our cell phone technology and the apps that we have and the items that we use are all a little bit different with our providers, as well as those are then activated based on what the National Weather Service puts out. I'd love to tell you that we would have the opportunity to get them all completely enhanced and injected together. It's probably not going to happen in the technology that we live in exactly today.
Is it safe to say that we should listen to their local sirens first about local stuff? They'll certainly go check it out when we hear it on our cell phone.
That's a great question. My advice is always to look at outdoor warning sirens are a great tool for people that are outside, but all the tools that we have today with technology that we have on our phones and technology that we have maybe in our homes are great tools for us to be able to look at that individual warning for our individuals that may be in our home or visiting in the neighborhood that we might be.
So if it forced everybody to do a little homework and dig deeper, that was good. It's always good, right? More information.
Yeah, no, it's good. It was the night before school starting. I'm sure it made a lot of parents question, do I drag my kids out of bed and throw them downstairs, or do I let them sleep? And it's a tough one.
Chief,
Absolutely.
identify yourself. I'm not sure the public watching right now, you just got up and started speaking, but we're so thrilled, of course, to have you. And you've been here a long time now, 6 months or more, I don't know, but go ahead.
Not quite 6 months yet. I'm in my 6 months. So Scott Kerber, the fire chief with the city.
Our new fire chief.
Thanks,
Right.
Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Chief Gerber, I just got one question. Now, we can be pretty much assured, though, they all work. Because I know we test them, what is it, the first Wednesday of every month?
Yeah, our outdoor warning sirens, again, part of a bigger system, are tested regularly. We utilize our public works staff to be able to help us when we do that testing, and they are tested on a regular basis to assure that they work.
First Wednesday of every month at 1 o'clock, is that still on? Or is
Absolutely.
That changed? Yeah.
Yep.
As a teacher, I knew that well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving down, city manager report.
Thank you, members of the council. Last item tonight, and you remember it's tied to the first item of the night, and that is setting our preliminary levy, property tax levy and budget for 2020. We did the HRA levy. We need to actually consent to that as well. But the action tonight is, by law, we're required to set a preliminary property tax levy by September 30th of this year. And as you may know, that then leads into all the notices that every single property owner in Eden Prairie will receive in November for their proposed taxes to be paid in 2020. This is based on the value of their property in 2019. So property values are, for the most part, set. There are changes, minor changes that occur throughout the year, but we need to set our preliminary levy by the end of the month. You also know that we spent a good 7 or 8 months preparing for this moment, and we'll continue to our final adoption of our budget in December. So after those notices are sent out to property owners, and notices are going to say that people are invited to come to the first meeting in December of this year. I think that might be the 3rd of December, but I should probably double check the date on that. But either way, the first Tuesday in December, people will be invited to come down to comment on the budget, and we'll be given a robust presentation by myself and the finance manager. But for now, we could say that the levy that needs to be set at $39,621,102 is a number that could be lowered between now and the end of the year, but could not be raised. So that's what I mean by setting our ceiling. We have been able to keep that levy between the September preliminary time frame and the end of the year the same for the last several years. And we intend for that to be the case again this year, because the city council spent time in May and June and July going through the budget that was presented to you. In the highlight of that would be in the document in the packet. There's about a 50 page document in the packet that provides some preliminary data on the budget. And we're able to say that with this general fund levy proposed for 2020, we're able to meet all the goals that we've set out in the next year. Actually, we would prepare a 2-year budget, in all the general delivery of our services on an everyday basis, and including all additional goals related to housing, sustainability, transportation, all modes of transportation, public safety, parks and recreation, and enhanced transportation. For instance, even in the public safety area, this budget proposes 2 additional police officers over the next 2 years. The impact on our property taxpayer as of right now is it's got a high value, and it's a very negligible change in the property tax. The proposed budget for 2020 at this time is proposed to go up 3.1%, with the levy at 3.4%. The average right now in about 10 cities of similar size around us are in the 5 to 6% range. So I only know of one city of similar size in the metro area that is actually looking at a levy lower than ours. But again, it's one in which we think does not lower or change any of our service levels. And the median valued home in Eden Prairie is projected to be about $413,000 next year, which is a 3.2% increase from the prior year, which would result in about a 3.4% increase in taxes. My point is that our city tax rate, which is one of the lowest in the metro, would be flat, would be the same. So if the value of your property stays the same, your taxes would stay the same. If the value of your property goes up 3%, your taxes are probably going to go up 3%. That's kind of what we're tracking at now. I'll have more detail in December, but that's how things are looking at this point in time. So again, the action tonight is a resolution to certify the preliminary property tax levy and budget and HRA, and there's more opportunity for the public to weigh in through the rest of the year.
Great, thank you. Before we do a motion, any questions council members have for staff? Councilmember Narayan.
Yep. Just one. When you showed me a few minutes ago, the highest neighboring tax go all the way up to 10% increase.
Proposed. That's correct.
10%.
Yeah, 10% levy increase. Correct.
10% levy increase.
Right.
In our case, we are 3.9%.
3.4.
3.4%, which is again the second lowest proposed so far.
Of 12 cities that I looked at.
Neighboring cities that we have seen.
And I will say that's a staff-produced amount of information. So that 10% by that particular city could be set in September, and then in December it could be 5%. or the 10% the council could choose to set at 6%. So those are just numbers that I have in kind of the August, early September timeframe. But it's a good indicator that we're proposing a levy that is one of the lower ones in the area.
Thank you.
And again, just to underscore that if we were not able to offer the services to our public that they expect and that a quality community really demands, setting just a low levy just to say, hey, we're the lowest around is not necessarily something admirable, but because we are able to offer the services at a high level because of efficiencies and because of our tax rate, which means that we're building and expanding our tax base. That's why we're able to do such a great job. I wanted to underscore too for people of Eden Prairie listening, that this is not some number that staff, set and we rubber stamp or something. We've been part of this, not only the 7 months that Mr. Getchell mentioned, but really multiple meetings that we painstakingly go through. And furthermore, those of us that have ever run in a campaign, which is like all of us, know that a budget begins to be a reflection of our values and our beliefs as a community. So we take this very seriously. A budget is definitely a reflection of what we believe we are doing the best to represent the people of Eden Prairie. So appreciate all the incredible time that staff has put in on this as well. So I see a couple, let's see, Councilmember Nelson.
I'd like to thank staff for creating the kind of budget that does allow us to have excellent services for the city and keeps us in the lowest 15% of the taxes. It's not a miracle, it's just hard work, and I know that, but the fact that we can do it makes this a great place to live. So I would like to say thank you for the continuing work and situation here.
Anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt the resolution that certify the proposed 2020 property tax levy to be $39,621,102 and set December 3rd, 2019 as the meeting which will include discussion of the budget and provide for the public comment and accept the proposed 2020 budget of $51,610,456 and consent and approve the HRA tax levy of $200,000.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous. All right, I believe that is all to come before our agenda this evening. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Oh, I was off.